friends in front of me. Andy Kim. Andy is a child of Korean immigrants. He's a proud product of New Jersey's fantastic public schools. He went on to become a Rhodes Scholar, came back to serve his country in a variety of ways, working at the State Department, on the National Security Council at the White House, and ultimately as the congressman for the 3rd Congressional District here in New Jersey. About a year ago, Andy started a campaign which turned into kind of a movement. He was talking about bringing ethics back to politics, bringing trust back to politics, and his message has resonated with thousands. So many are knocking on doors, making phone calls, inspired by what he represents, and I'm very excited to have him here tonight. He's excited to talk to you. Andy Kim.
Good evening, everyone. This is incredible. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on out here. I have to say, we are 18 days out, not that any of us are counting, but, as I get down to this final stretch here, I'll tell you, I actually get kind of emotional here. There's a lot, that we go through in this final stretch. It's been a very dramatic year in Jersey politics. And so now we're at this inflection point now about what happens next. And yes, we want every single one of you to go out there and knock doors, make phone calls, do everything we can to be able to run through the tape. But I just want to share something with you that's on my mind. When I think about this in terms of how is it that we're going to be able to connect into those that are still trying to make up their minds? Still trying to figure out, who they're going to vote for, the people that we want to make sure we're connecting in with. I want to just share something that I've thought about and I've learned over the course of my last 3 elections working in a tough district. As many of you know, I won a district that Trump won twice. Trump won my congressional district in 2016 and in 2020. I remember in 2018, people didn't think I had a shot at winning my congressional district. And, on election night, I was actually 2,500 votes down on election night. You can imagine how tough that was. I was watching the news, and the news is like, Mikey Sherrill wins, Tom Malinowski wins, and I'm like, good for them. Oh, I'm so happy for Tom. But look, 9 days later, I was able to join up with him, and I'm very proud. A win is a win, right? A win is a win. And I'm so proud to have served alongside Tom. I still think that when the history books are written, the 2018 midterm election will go down in history as one of the most consequential midterm elections ever. And so, all through these different efforts, I've been through a number of these 18 days out. And what I'll tell you is that, when you're encountering someone here at the end that's still trying to make up their mind, they're really trying to contemplate, what decision to make. And what I'll tell you is the most important thing is to show respect. Show respect for each and every person. I get it, for many of us, this is a clear-cut decision, right? For many of us, we're thinking about this and saying, how is this election so close? But what I'll say is, please, as you're going out there and talking to people, we have to make sure that we understand that empathy has to flow in every direction. That we think through what it is that people are going through. We have to understand, we don't live their lives. We don't know what they're going through, what's on their minds, where they're getting their information from. And the main thing that I'll say that really has connected over the course of the work that I've done is really trying to anchor the work that I'm doing, that Sue is doing, that Kamala Harris is doing, in this sense of public service. Not just thinking about, not just talking to people about the next 18 days, not just thinking about it in terms of this battle between two parties, Democrat, Republican. Honestly, a lot of folks that are still trying to make up their minds, this tribalism, this battle, thinking about it in that kind of way, it really turns them off. I think about this in terms of my own parents. My parents, they really tried to instill in me this sense of public service. My parents taught me this line. They said, service isn't just a job, it's a way of life. And that's something that I hold very dear. It's something that has been a guiding post for me throughout my entire career. My work in the foreign policy, national security, stepping up to run for Congress. And I think that that's something that, I've tried to live out and I've tried to commit myself to. And it's interesting because, that was a lesson I learned from my parents. Now, I've been in politics now for about 8 years. I got a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old, so they've grown up with their dad in politics basically their entire lives, my 2 little boys. So just a couple months ago, I remember I was trying to think through, I wonder if I'm instilling the right lessons to them about what it is that I'm trying to do, because they've come around to a lot of rallies, a lot of fundraising and other things. A couple months ago, I was playing football with my kids in our front yard, and as anyone who has 2 boys know, once, in just a few minutes, they're going to start fighting with each other, right? Yeah, they just start fighting with each other. So my 2 boys, they just start fighting with each other, and I just look at my older son. My older son looks at my younger son, and he just looks at him, he's like, I'm not going to vote for you. And my younger son's much more dramatic. He just gets all worked up, and he's spinning his hand. He's like, well, I'm not voting for you. And I'm just thinking, like, what is happening here, right? And I realized at that point that, with their dad in politics their entire lives, they were like trying to think through, like, what's the most hurtful thing that a human can say to another human? But I love that story because, it just kind of it gets at so much of what they're soaking in. But, I actually kind of worried a little bit. I worried that maybe they're taking away the wrong lesson. Now, this isn't just about Election Day. This isn't just about November 5th. This is about what comes after that. About what kind of America are my 2 little boys going to grow up in? What kind of America are your kids and grandkids going to grow up in? This is an inflection point moment for our country. I truly believe that the next 4 to 5 years are going to shape the next 4 to 5 decades of this country. One of the greatest honors of my life, and I'm sure Tom will say the same thing, is that the 2 of us, we got to call a great man, John Lewis, a colleague of ours for a year and a half before he passed away. And it was just such an extraordinary experience. And I remember my last time talking to him, I asked him at that point, I said, what does this moment in America look like to you? This is someone who has lived through so much, has been there through some of the most difficult moments of our nation's history. And I asked him, well, how does this compare to 1968? And he said, look, we're not trying to compare the years, but he did tell me and looked me in the eye and said, but this is a historic moment. And that was really powerful to hear from someone like John Lewis, giving me that sense that yes, this is a historic moment. This is someone who lived through history, literally carries the scars of history upon his body. And I'll tell you, I don't actually want to live through history. I'd rather live through quieter, simpler times where I can see my kids a lot more. But unfortunately, this is the moment that we're in. And the thing that he said, though, that when he concluded that conversation with me, he said, these moments of history are shaped by those who step up. You're stepping up. I'm stepping up. Sue Altman is stepping up. And we need her now more than ever. Because I can tell you, I think it's actually been just about the 1-year anniversary of Speaker Mike Johnson. Please don't let me have to go through this any longer. Please. That has been enough. I'm tired of having the most extreme, radical, extremist Speaker of the House in American history. Look what we've seen happen. This is a guy who is literally leading the charge on trying to make the case for not certifying the election results on January 6th. So when people ask me, well, how do we make sure that January 6th doesn't happen again in 2025? We do it by making sure Mike Johnson is not the Speaker of the House when that happens. When people ask me, look, how do we make sure that we're protecting our democracy? What bills can we pass? What legislation we can pass? We cannot pass anything as long as that man holds the gavel. So much is on the line. And Sue is someone that can do this. There's no one in New Jersey right now out of 9 million people that has a better chance of taking that gavel away from Mike Johnson than Sue Altman. So no pressure. Just don't mess this up, okay? Look, it comes down to that. And as Tom said, the 2 of us, we were each 20% of the House majority for 2 years, and look what we got done. It shows you that our quiet communities in New Jersey that aren't used to being at the front lines, not used to being so consequential for national politics, they matter. And this year, this is our cause. This is our work. And we have to trust that our fellow citizens in other states, they're going to do their work, but we got to do ours. We got to do our part. So I just ask you, please, to make sure that you give this everything you got. You sign up to be able to door knock. The fact you came out here today, you're doing the right thing today. But I ask you to think about, what are you going to do tomorrow? What are you going to do the next day? Make an 18-day plan. Try to think through what it is that you can do to be able to make sure that you're doing everything that you can. Because I can tell you, Sue Altman's doing everything she can. I can assure you, I'm doing everything I can. We got to do our part, each and every one of us. We cannot do this alone. The last thing I'll just say here is that when you go out there and you're talking to people, as I told you, you got to show that respect. You got to give them a sense of why it's important to them. And you do that by showing that it's important to you. Think through the first time you really got involved in politics. The first time that there was an article or something that got your attention, something that worried you, something that got you to say, you know what? I need to do something. Maybe it was a loved one that got sick. Maybe it was when, you had your first kid. Maybe it was when, your mother or father, had an accident. Maybe it was something about education or immigration. Think through what it was that got you to be here today. Where that path started. And I'd say, make that your North Star. Because there's so much at stake right now, and if you really want to make a difference, if you really want to convey to someone why they should listen to you and why they should take your advice and go out there and vote, why they should go out there and vote for Kamala, for me, for Sue, you got to show them why it matters to you. You're not going to win them over by just walking through a laundry list of policy positions and ideas. You got to show them who you are and why you care so much. So just think about that. Follow your North Star. Hold that true. If we do that and we work as hard as we can, I guarantee you we're going to get Sue Altman into the Congress. And I'm really excited by having this opportunity to be able to stand before you. This year is 50 years since my parents immigrated to America. And I think it would be such an incredible opportunity and such an incredible experience to celebrate 50 years of my family here in America by becoming your next United States Senator. Let's go win this thing. Let's do it for Kamala. Let's do it for Sue. Let's do it for America. Thanks so much, everybody.
Okay, everybody.